Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Great. I think we missed so many spaces that it's going to be just me and you in this one.
May well be. As I was dialing in, I was trying to check everything. I don't know if anything's moved around, but it seems more unfamiliar than usual.
Yeah, they constantly, meddle and add things and move things.
Yeah, I think middle is the appropriate word to be using here.
I mean, one of the things that I have noticed, for many years, like when there is a product that's good, that's useful, and they just continue improving it in double quotes until it becomes unusable. Because at no point a company can say, okay, that's good enough. Like let's leave it like this. They have to constantly change it until it becomes complete trash.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was. Oh, I've done something. Can you?
Yeah. I can see you're fine.
Okay, cool. I don't know. It was Binance, and every time I used Binance, they always changed around where the buy button was, where the sell button was, how to change from Beam to Bitcoin to Ethereum, and it was so frustrating. Because as soon as you got familiar with it, and this is just one example that comes to mind, but as soon as you got familiar with it, they'd change it to something ever so slightly different that would just throw you off.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. It's not better, it's just different. They're just moving things around for the sake of change.
Yeah.
Maybe we're getting old. That's also a possibility.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So we did miss a few last week, and this August is actually it's finally over, right? So we're moving into autumn, into September, which is great because with all of the vacations and the heat and all this stuff, it was relatively difficult. But I think we will get back on track. Now that the holidays are over, kids are back to school, where they belong.
Thank God. Right.
And things will move back on track. So not too many updates about Beam today. Everything is pretty much where it was last week, because as I said, people were all over the place. But I think next week we might have more updates. The hackathon is kind of still going on, but there is not a lot of activity there. Maybe it will also pick up once people get back from their vacations, and we will have more things to share. But at the same time, since we are in the industry that's not boring, to say the least, and everything else is happening all the time, there are some things that we would like to talk about, starting with, in my opinion, the very interesting developments in the legal space in the United States, where SEC was suing all kinds of people, projects, and companies. And I think the most important, for me at least, one of the most important stories was about the Uniswap, and that it was kind of acknowledged as being a decentralized protocol that's not responsible for people's funds, and the fact that it's non-custodial also has a lot of meaning in this regard, right? So when you run a decentralized non-custodial protocol, it basically exactly says that the protocol itself is not responsible for the funds. People who are holding the keys are, and this decision was very important in terms of kind of paving the way for the development of DeFi, because one of the gravest concerns was that, and as you probably heard, that there are all kinds of proposals for laws that will require decentralized protocols to do KYC and to control a lot of things. So I think it's great that DeFi is being recognized for what it is. Yeah. And it's really good news. Also, at the same time, there are also kind of discussion about Bitcoin, Ethereum, are they commodity or not, which I think also was there was progress in this regard, and also approvals for exchange traded funds for Bitcoin and Ethereum are moving forward. So there are a lot of positive developments in this space, which is important and interesting.
It is interesting and important, but it's also very like, or at least to me, it seems a very kind of stark comparison to the legal stuff that seemed to be happening, like even this year towards the beginning of the year. It seemed like we were coming under fire, and now it seems like we're kind of, the industry is kind of doing okay. I mean,
We're so big.
Grayscale one there. We are so bad. Yeah, exactly. But when we had the call before the space, I started laughing, and it was because I saw someone send that, like, where is it? They're like, we're so bad.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's over. The cycle of crypto.
This cycle, these days it's like, week over week or something. Like,
oh yeah, it seems to get faster and faster, and then
like Grayscale 1, Bitcoin goes up, and then like the next day it goes down, and like, well, okay, what happened?
Yeah.
Who said what and why?
it's over. Yeah.
So like, I mean, I don't know. I think we'll just have to go through another week and see what will be at the end of it, because as of right now, it's very difficult to say what's going to happen tomorrow. And also, as we know, that 2024, the next year, is going to be an election year in the United States and many other countries, and elections are always hectic and chaotic in many ways. And I see that crypto is going to play a role in the agenda of many people who are going to run for various positions in various governments around the world, because that was not the case like 4 years ago. But I think that this year, like next year, is going to be a major. Not major, but like one of the, I think, key agenda topics for many, because even though 4 years ago it was like already after the first boom of crypto, and there was a lot of kind of already money and projects and everything was like happening, but I think and we talked about it like one of the last times, like what we call adoption, it was not exactly the adoption that we wanted. But it is happening, and I think one of the most significant events, and we also talked about it, is the launch of Pi USD, which is by PayPal.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of activity happening in stablecoin space in general. Today I heard that Binance are going to be dialing down the BUSD, their own stablecoin, and it's going to be kind of not closed, but significantly reduced in some ways.
Yeah.
One of the topics that we obviously raised immediately when we talked about the PayPal is the fact that they have millions of users that will be thrilled to find out that they don't have any privacy with this new stablecoin.
Yeah.
And what is going to happen, when they actually will start using it, how easy it will be to track what they're buying and all that. And this is actually, it's interesting because I thought about it in a completely different context. There is this strike of Hollywood writers, Writers Guild, and a few others joined them. And there are several different issues there, obviously, that they are trying to change. But one of the interesting ones is that they get a lot of of their income from streaming services like Netflix, like Apple TV, or whatever it's called, and many others. And these services do not publish the viewing statistics properly. So they know, obviously, how many people watched each episode of each show, probably on a second-by-second level. But all of this data is kept private. So the writers, they claim that they're getting ripped off because, maybe, they should have gotten royalties from some X number of views, but in reality, the network said that it was like some different number. So the reason I thought about this in the context of privacy is because this is actually the place where there should have been some transparency, maybe selective transparency. Like maybe not everyone should, get these numbers. But the funny thing is that it's easier to count numbers of people that are actually physically going to the cinema, even though it requires, going to each cinema, counting people, tickets, getting information and all that, averaging it, because obviously you cannot be at all cinemas at once. But it's still easier than getting the data from those services, even though they have a crazy precise and enormous amount of data, but they just don't share it.
Yeah, sure.
I found it very very interesting. You have very precise info, but it's actually more difficult to get because it's private. And in this case, I think there some argument can be made that in this specific situation where we're talking about paying royalties per number of views, it might make sense to have some transparency into this information, or at least share this information with the authors, and only the authors maybe, that are actually dependent, that their income depends on this information. So kind of a strange topic. So that's exactly the point, right? So you take your stable coins, you make them completely public without absolutely no privacy whatsoever. But then the private information is actually being hidden from the people who depend on it. So it's an interesting dilemma.
Yeah, for sure. I never thought about that too much. I mean, you would be I guess you're in a position where you have to, at the moment at least, trust what the people are telling you about your income, which would be kind of weird.
Yeah. So in many areas, there are organizations that control this process and are responsible for this whole area of royalty-based businesses, right? So when you are an artist and you record a song, and then your song is being played, let's say, on radio or on streaming services, there is an organization that is responsible for counting the numbers of times, how many times your songs are played, and then calculating your royalties and collecting them for you from the publishers and the radio stations and whoever is doing that. But if the services do not share the correct and truthful data, obviously it makes this job much more difficult.
Sure.
Yeah. Which brings us to this new interesting privacy, somewhat related topic of friend.tech.
Yeah. And this was, we spoke about it on the last space we were on briefly, like a new kind of social app that at that time, and I think still now, was working very well. But if I understand correct, they had some privacy issues. So
there was this tweet that said that 100,000 of accounts were leaked, but it turned out it wasn't leaked. It was just basically detectable easily from the blockchain explorer.
Okay.
Yeah, so
yeah, I remember now. The block or someone, one of these
right
crypto sums came out with an article saying 100,000 addresses have been leaked.
Yeah, and there was this somebody who said, "Oh, it's a great idea. Like I could charge or like money or something like that for setting a meeting with me." And I said, "Yeah, it's a great idea to allow everyone to see who wants to meet you and how much exactly they are willing to pay for this privilege."
Yeah, true.
Absolutely, absolutely, great idea.
Yeah.
No, I don't see anything that could possibly go wrong.
No.
Yeah, but and it's like my personal feelings during these last, I don't know, several months about what's happening in crypto, like in general. I'm very sad to see this. I would say this kind of, how do you put it, like going backwards in many ways. Like for example, decentralization, right, which was the key like value, key property of crypto, and very important. And always there was this, okay, how many miners, how they're distributed, like all of these discussions, is it decentralized enough? And today what's happening is that more and more projects just plain either give up on that. Like for example, all of the layer twos that say, yeah, I mean, we could have been probably doing some things to get more decentralized, but maybe later. But for now, it's okay to be completely decentralized. And like optimistic rollups, for example, that are supposed to have this dispute mechanism, they just say, maybe we'll add it later. For now, just trust us that everything is okay. And more projects and more kind of, different technological solutions just don't even try to pursue those values, and nobody cares, right?
Yeah.
So the same obviously has to privacy, but okay, privacy we can argue maybe, I don't know, something, but decentralization is definitely even more basic property of crypto. It's like, why would you even use crypto? I mean, you could just go to a regular bank and have roughly the same effect.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, at least to me, the biggest like benefit is that the biggest benefit of crypto is that it's like permissionless and unstoppable and that kind of stuff. But as soon as it becomes centralized, it's kind of just like role playing as that, because if push comes to shove and it's too centralized, then it will no longer be the case.
Yeah. So there are people who are talking about this. Chris Black, very like vocal kind of opponent of all of this. Let's just pretend we're decentralized. And I think for one of the funniest examples of that was this recent Pepe fiasco. By the way, I don't know how it ended, because what I heard is that there was this 3 out of 6 or something like that multi-sig that protected this, and it was just exploited and then changed to something else.
Yeah, it was like a something like a multi-sig, and then they just changed it somehow to 2 of 8 or something like that. And then at least like from what I read, they changed like the threshold on the multi-sig, and then sold a bunch of tokens and said goodbye to like left one man by himself or something like this to deal with the aftermath of their swift exit.
Unbelievable.
Something like that.
Yeah, so multi-sigs, they are very problematic for 2 reasons. First of all, I mean, even 3 out of 6 or like 4 out of 6, it still means that 4 people need to agree to rob the place and split, which is not too many. And also, obviously, you're never sure that these are indeed different people. So there is no process right now, in most cases, to prove that the accounts actually belong to different people. Maybe that there should be a process like that. Maybe this is where this KYC should come into play, right? Because when you are trusting And after all, multisig is about trust. It's a reduced trust because it's like better than one person, but it's still trust in a specific set of people. Maybe in this case, it would be a good idea to, request that we know who these people are, who we are trusting with these 2, 4, 6 signatures.
For sure. And like the way I look at it personally, at least, is like very good tool to use with people that I know and already kind of trust for us to like manage stuff effectively together, but very bad for like me wanting to trust other people that I don't really know, and maybe they're anonymous, maybe they're public, but I don't know who they are.
On the other hand,
So
if you know who are the holders of the multisig, it makes them a target.
yeah, true. Yeah,
It's interesting kind of problem to solve in this case.
yeah, for sure. I do think, and like, I do think that, is it like, I think they rebranded. Is it Gnosis or Safe?
Yeah, it was Gnosis Safe, and now it's just Safe.
Okay. I think that they've like absolutely smashed it in terms of making a great product, and like it's fairly easy to use and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So they are not the only vendor who provides these kinds of solutions, but they are very well organized in terms of the wallet and the APIs and the SDK. They provide a lot of services. And what's interesting in their approach, and like it's a good approach because they are using what's called MPC, multi-party computation. And the idea of MPC is that you have some calculation that can be performed by several participants, but they can only get the end results together. So none of them can actually know all of the details, and thus create this key that is eventually created. There is some key. None of them can do it themselves. They need to do it everyone together, and nobody knows all of the parts of the computation. So that's why it works, right? It's a great stuff. But once again, in this situation, it still depends on the fact that these participants who perform all of these parts of the calculation, they're not colluding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's why what they are doing, they're saying, okay, we entrust these nodes that are performing parts of this computation to a well-known organizations which have reputation, and that's how it works. So it's still limited. It's still permission because you need to be actively added to the system in order to participate. But it's better in many ways than many other solutions. Another interesting thing that's happening right now, if you are not following in the Ethereum ecosystem, is account abstraction.
I haven't been following this. I mean, I've seen it so many places, and for some reason I just haven't kind of looked past seeing it mentioned on Twitter a bunch of times.
Yeah, so I think it's absolutely amazing, except for the privacy part. But if we put the privacy aside, so what's actually happening is that many people and organizations especially encounter this issue with managing private keys. It's not a new problem. It's a problem that existed since forever. And today there are several solutions that give you some ways to handle it. So one of the most important, well-known companies that are dealing with this area is called Fireblocks.
Okay.
And they
is the custodian.
Yes, exactly. They provide solutions for custody of private keys, which are very complicated. You have many different private key signatures, rules to handle them. If this is a transaction of this kind, it should be signed by these people, and what happens if somebody loses their keys, and what happens if somebody gets fired. So all of these situations are being handled, and this solution is very expensive. It's very complicated, it's very expensive, so it's only used by very large organizations, exchanges, banks, and such. And the problem for small, medium businesses and private people who still want to be more secure than just storing one private key. They are, until recently, they were still left in the code. So what Ethereum has done, they have created this standard. It's called EIP 4337, account abstraction. And what they have created is a smart contract that acts as a wallet.
Okay.
The benefits of this approach is that inside that smart contract, you can code additional rules, additional protection mechanisms, so that you can, for example, you can restore your, let's say you have a secret key, a seed, and you have this smart wallet account, and you lose your seed. You can have a mechanism to restore it, using this MPC procedure, or like several friends that you trust personally, right? So let's say I trust you, and I trust Amir, and I trust Vladi, so I give each of you a part of something, and I say, listen, if I ever call you and I say, I lost my key, the three of you can like restore it, in an MPC way. And I'm trusting you personally not to collude and rob me, right? That's basically the point. So that's something that becomes possible. Now, you can also say, under no circumstances there will be a situation where a regular transaction can spend more than $1,000. If there is a transaction that tries to spend more than that, it needs to be signed by an additional signature. So this increases the security of a situation where somebody got hold of one of your private keys that you use often, and then tries to just, in one transaction, just clear your wallet.
Sorry, I had a very poorly timed Amazon delivery. I was running up and down the street.
I hope it was something good.
Okay. This is one of the most boring Amazon deliveries there could be. I think is some sealant for the kitchen bench.
Okay.
Okay. And where do you think that this kind of stuff, like outside of small businesses that are looking for custodian options and this kind of stuff, are there any other interesting implications that the account abstractions brings?
Yes, quite a few actually. And today there are wallets, like for example, if you check out nBuyer, which is a wallet that uses account abstraction, and it's very beautiful. There are several wallets out there that use this approach, but I think nBuyer is it's a great product. It's like very hard. I'm not invested in it in any way, but I had a chance to look at it and a few others, and I saw that it's very well made. So one of the things that you can do is, for example, it's called a paymaster. So it's also part of the standard. The paymaster is another contract that can subsidize, like not exactly subsidize, but it can allow you to pay transaction fees when you don't directly have gas. So for example, you're a new user and you only have USDC, right? And you want to make a transaction. So instead of going somewhere to buy gas and then like doing all of these intermediate steps, the paymaster says, don't worry, you can pay your gas fee in USDC and I will convert it, through decentralized, or any other exchange. So it simplifies the onboarding process for new users who don't need to hold like Ethereum itself, right, to do this operation.
Okay.
So let's say you airdrop some new coin or something, or you airdrop like something, an NFT, and the person created a new wallet, so they don't yet have anything in that wallet. So it can help with this onboarding part. Also, because these wallets, they can use oracles, you can also say, listen, I want to protect myself from accidentally sending funds to scammers or known scammer addresses, right? So you can say, yeah, I want to make sure that whenever transaction is made, it's never sent to like this address, right? So obviously the opposite side of that is the censorship. So the wallet can say, you know what, like even though it's your contract, but obviously the basic version that is being deployed is still provided by the wallet's creators. So yeah, they can say, we are not sending to Tornado Cash or addresses, or we're not sending to, whomever. By the way, we talked about it also in the call before the space. who was it that tried to prevent people from using their competitors?
That was friend.tech also. They tweeted a tweet, and it was something like, at the moment, as I understand, you can get points for like using the platform or whatever, and it's listed under like an airdrop tab. So I guess it's points towards an airdrop. And they sent out a tweet saying that anyone that uses like competitors to friend.tech will have their points like cancelled and thus won't get any airdrop.
That's interesting.
Something along those lines.
Because if you think of it, like when we're talking about airdrops, it's very easy to see if the same address also participates in other airdrops by competitors and also do the same thing, right? Because there is no privacy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And a lot of like airdrops in the past used this as a part of their like airdrop strategy or whatever. Like I know that in
the vampire
and like
whatever it's called.
Yeah, and a lot of like in DeFi Summer or whatever, a lot of protocols were airdropping to people that had Curve locked in their governance thing or whatever, and this kind of stuff. But this was at least one of the first ones that I saw that was like blacklisting based on use of competitors, which I thought was, I mean, kind of interesting.
Yeah, there was also this story about a lot of OnlyFans.
Yeah, I've seen many tweets that a bunch of OnlyFans people, e-girls, that kind of thing, have been flowing into the platform.
But why? Because it allows for additional monetization options. Like when somebody wants to talk to them, they get money.
I guess they saw people that joined the platform and got a bunch of money by simply joining, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there was a few examples of influencers that joined and a bunch of people bought their keys, and because I think that like it's kind of a weird setup. I think that you get money based on the volume. So if there's $100 going into your keys, you don't get the $100, but you get like a portion. I think it's 50% of the total fees that are taken on that $100 or something like this.
Wow. Okay.
So you get $2 back.
Yeah, I mean, it could be probably very depressing.
I joined and I've made roughly enough for about a quarter of a coffee. Depending on the establishment serving the coffee.
Yeah, I mean, keep your day job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there was a story that the owner of OnlyFans or the founder, whomever, he was actually buying a lot of Ethereum at the time. Maybe it's related, maybe it's not, but...
Oh, yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah, they did. Or I saw something saying that they did, which I didn't think much of at the time, but it's kind of interesting.
Oh, there was like in very large amounts, like hundreds of millions or something.
Yeah, and like this goes back to the thing that you mentioned at the start with like the election cycle coming up next year, 2024. And now it's very difficult for anyone, including politicians, to ignore crypto, which is very different from like 2019 and this kind of thing in the last cycle. Like there was a big boom and then bust, and it was very easy to ignore it. And now, even though prices are down and activity is down and this kind of thing, it's a lot more difficult to ignore.
Yeah,
which is good.
Interesting.
Progress.
It's really interesting. What's going to happen with all that? I saw this crazy statistic that maybe I'm wrong. It's like 30% of Bitcoin in circulation are actually lost. Did you hear?
Oh wow!
Did you see something like that?
I've seen. I can't remember any of the numbers, but I have seen like people talking about how much the Bitcoin is just lost forever and that kind of thing.
It's really. I wonder if it's true. Like, I mean, I really how do they know? Like, probably Bitcoin that didn't move for a very long periods of time.
Yeah,
but still, you never know.
but then every now and then you see like a dormant wallet from 7 years ago has moved $100 million worth of Bitcoin and this kind of stuff.
It's amazing how many rumors are, flying all over the place, despite like having so much information theoretically about everything. But still, you can generate rumors from almost anything. I think the best example is that, did you hear the story about this Prigozhin guy who got killed?
The which guy?
Okay, so in Russia, there was this person. He was a oligarch affiliated with Putin, was fighting in Ukraine, and then at some point he decided to stage a sort of a half coup. Like it wasn't exactly a coup because, like, I don't know. So he basically took some troops that belonged to him and just started marching towards Moscow. And then at some point he stopped and they reached some agreement and he left the country. So a few days ago, he was killed he was flying in his private plane inside Russia, and the plane somehow magically separated himself into several parts, and he was killed. So the reason I mentioned that, it's not because, like, okay, so first of all, there is a rumor that he actually was not killed, and it was somebody else who was killed, obviously, and he's still alive, and he's with Elvis somewhere.
Okay.
But the other rumor was that he was the holder of the fifth largest Bitcoin wallet.
Oh, really?
So
I didn't see that part. I saw like the surrounding stuff. Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so and now it's not clear whether he was the only one who knew the keys, or maybe somebody else is the owner of this wallet now, or if it's even true, right? But that's the power of rumors. You never know.
Yeah, I'm sure the laser-eyed Bitcoin maxis are ecstatic about the death of a large Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's suddenly like, your coins are worth much more.
Yeah. Okay.
Starkware tried to make some coins disappear earlier today. It was the strange story, if you saw it.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. And this, like, I don't know how, I can't describe it at all from a technical standpoint, but they were upgrading the network and you needed to upgrade your wallet before that. And if you didn't, then your funds would kind of be lost in the abyss and you couldn't upgrade after the upgrade or something like this. And I think the amount that got lost initially, they've since like walked it back and said that they'll kind of support the previously lost stuff. But it was like $550,000 worth or something to that effect.
How much?
Like $500,000.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's a huge amount. I guess it's a lot of small amounts combined, but it's still a decent chunk of money.
The funny thing is that after they got this backlash from the community all over the place, they fixed it very quickly.
Yeah. Which I thought, hold on a second, why didn't you just do that in the first place?
Very strange.
Yeah. And this, like,
also unfortunate because I really like the company. I think they're doing very interesting research, like scientific stuff.
Yeah. They seem cool. And I think I met one of I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name. Ben, I'm going to call him. As a bit Eli, maybe. I don't know. But I met one of them a long time ago when I was visiting Tel Aviv.
Really?
But yeah, one of the things that I keep thinking, and this is not at all related to Starkware beyond like it also being in L2, is that I feel like another one in particular that I'm thinking of, I feel like some of these L2s are kind of holding off on further decentralizing their protocols and this kind of stuff because they're earning a bunch of fees on like from people using the network, and especially the ones that haven't launched a token, like there's more users maybe because people are trying to use the protocols and use the network for like a potential airdrop later on, and each use is kind of bringing in fees for the sequences or whatever they're called. And I often think like, I bet some of them are kind of like postponing decentralizing it and launching a token to keep that activity level up and the fees up and be like making lots of money.
Yeah, so
that's my conspiracy theory on L2s.
That's definitely the case, but also they are not pressured. I mean, as you said, people still use these platforms, especially layer 2s. There is no outcry, there is no criticism from the community for, wait a second, why are you not decentralized now, or this or that. Now, unlike Bitcoin or Beam or systems which are permissionless mining, and anyone can just say, you know what, go mine Bitcoin, go mine anything you want. And in this case, it's not like you can say, oh, no problem, I will have my own sequencer and compete with you. That's not possible. So it's even worse than, and by the way, and what Ethereum did in this regard with the proof of stake and transition to proof of stake and how it was done, and we see today the validator distribution charts and how like they are governed by, once again, like 3-4 very large pools of stakers. And these pools are not much different from the mining pools of Bitcoin or Ethereum back in the day. So this situation didn't improve. And right now there is a huge queue to become validator because it's very profitable, turns out. And there is this entire story of MEV and like who is responsible for what. And I think one of the statements or like cases that Chris Black makes is that when you're trying to, let's say that the protocol should not have performed a certain transaction to a sanctioned party, why are you not going after validators who have approved this transaction? Is it not their job, right? No. So there are a lot of questions of who is responsible in this scenario, but I don't think that decentralization actually improves with this transition. Probably on the opposite. But once again, not enough people care, unfortunately, and that's why it all goes in one direction.
Yeah, it's almost like that. I forget what it's called, but it's like that phenomenon where no one cares until it's them kind of facing the consequences.
Tragedy of the commons.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. But this is exactly where the stewards of these protocols, people who are responsible and are very well regarded and trusted and have a lot of reputation with the community, should speak up and say, wait a second, that's not how it should work. But that's also not exactly happening. Yeah. Well, I mean, we will see where it's going, because there are a lot of good things happening on the one side, and there are lots of good things happening on the other side. So we will see. But you know what? It's like this thought that I had, like everybody's waiting for the next bull market. But I have this strange kind of notion that it might look different than what we think.
Sure.
I mean, There are two parts. Like the first part is influx of new money, obviously, that everybody waits, to happen, because this is how the previous bull cycles were funded, by a lot of new people bringing a lot of new money into the system. And right now there are two factors that inhibit that. One is the very high interest rates, and the money is very expensive. And also there is an overall kind of, too many bad things are happening all over the world right now, so there is a lot of risk. And obviously crypto is a risky business. But in general, it also, like previous times that this happened, there was an explosion of new protocols and new technologies. In 2017, it was ICOs and new tokens, but then in the following years, it was actually more new concepts, like all of these, like layer 2, Solana, fast blockchains, different consensus mechanisms. It all exploded in the latest bull market. But these days, I'm not sure, because since we have like clear winners, let's say like Bitcoin in the value area and Ethereum like in the distributed computing area, and everybody's trying to be either a layer 2 or a side chain or bridge 2, and like to be around those leaders. If you remember, I don't know, Polkadot, right? Or like Cosmos is barely like mentioned in, I don't know, I didn't hear any good news or interesting news coming about Cosmos or Polkadot for many months. Cardano, every once in a while, I saw that Coin Bureau guy is going to interview. I don't know if I'm going to watch it, but so yeah, they're all still around, because as we know, blockchain projects never died. But I don't know, like it's not clear to me where the new technological innovation is going to come from and how it's going to look, because right now it seems a little bit stagnant, and everybody's trying to move to be around the big guys, around Ethereum, and where the money is.
True. I had a conversation with a few people kind of regarding this last week or the week before, and I kind of agree. Like, at least now it seems very difficult, and I guess in general it's very difficult to like see what is gonna be the winners of the next cycle, or if there are gonna be any. And it'll be interesting. Like, I mean, every now and then there's like a new narrative and this kind of thing, and all of a sudden everyone loves the idea of lending protocols, or everyone loves the idea of stable coins, or so it'll be interesting like to see if there's still as much speculation as previous cycles, or if there's less speculation because there are these kind of winners that are already kind of taking center stage and also generating some like income or whatever. And be interesting to see if that kind of dilutes the amount of speculation on other stuff. I don't know. I have no idea, in fact, but it'll be interesting.
No, sure. Like, there are definitely people who are waiting for the next big thing, like explosion, right? Like the NFT, and what's going to be next. And it's a valid approach. I mean, after all, like if you are into the game of betting on the bubbles, which many crypto holders are in,
yeah. Myself included.
Then yes, but if you're looking into kind of more, I would say, conventional ways of working with this innovation, yeah, I mean, I definitely see a lot of interesting opportunity, especially in not just financial, but also like non-financial Web3 applications, as I have said many times before.
Yeah.
Or semi-financial, like something that has some monetary value exchange, but is not pure trading, as it was mostly in current DeFi. Current DeFi is pure trading. You borrow, something, then you trade it for something, and then you return it, and you're supposed to make a profit. So I see that, somebody reminded me that the time is very, very late, and we have some important questions that were asked and we want to answer. Thank you very much, Mr. Paxel, for reminding us. Okay, so I would like to start with this question about Zano's escrow contract. So there is a project called Zano, as you know. It's a privacy project, and they have recently published an article which is called Escrow Contract, and I recommend everyone to read it. I think they tweeted it, but we will probably might retweet it because it's a really very interesting concept. And the idea is that you have an escrow mechanism which says, okay, so you don't exchange funds immediately. You want to ensure delivery of some product or some other value. So you have this escrow account that waits for this condition to become true and only then releases the funds, right? And the question was that whether something like that is possible on Beam as well. And the answer is yes. And there are three types of mechanisms today that we have already that are doing this kind of escrow-based concept. So the first and the oldest one is the atomic swap mechanism. So the atomic swap mechanism creates a time-locked value, right? So there is something that is locked for hash and time, and it's only released if somebody can provide the answer to this hash, like the prefix of the hash, and only if enough time didn't pass, right? So there is this very coordinated and orchestrated process where two people who don't trust each other want to exchange value and on different blockchains, and they lock their value on each on their blockchain, and then they exchange the secrets in a way that no one can steal the funds from the other guy. It's very interesting and complicated mechanism. So this is the first very basic, like very hardcore, on-chain HTLC-based mechanism that does something similar. The second mechanism is much simpler because it's performed within Beam, and it uses a single minimal transaction that can exchange two values in the same transaction. So we use it in asset swaps. So if there is a situation where you want to make sure that you send something and get something else, it can be done in the same transaction in Beam. You negotiate because it's interactive, you can negotiate all of the parts of the transaction between the sender and the receiver. And then in the single transaction, I will send you 10 Beam and you will send me back some amount of Nefrit or something else. Now, for any other more complicated scenarios where these conditions are more complex, we can use smart contracts. So using the Beam smart contracts, obviously, you can implement this idea of an escrow. So you lock some funds in the contract, and then the contract checks for whatever condition is required to release the funds to the receiver, after the receiver has completed their part of the deal. So yeah, it's possible to build it. It's a great mechanism, very useful for many, many different things. The reason I remember it is because back in the day, before we had smart contracts, we were discussing what we called scriptless scripts. It's basically kind of simpler version of smart contracts implemented with exactly these kinds of conditions that are calculated off-chain, but then verified on-chain. And escrow was one of our go-to examples when we were trying to pitch this idea to all kinds of projects and people and organizations, because escrow was exactly something that was relatively easy. A very simple go-to example that everyone could understand. And I remember it was part of our pitch back then. But then we gave up and just implemented smart contracts because, still, Turing completeness is great. You can do a lot of things. So that was this question. Another question that we had was about the reverse bridges. Once again, they're being held on complete technicalities, right? And I believe that once August is over and everybody gets back, we can close it and release it. The third question is actually a very interesting one, and it's about the minimum amount of in US dollars that you need to open a trove in the fleet. So in the question, it says like right now it's about $90, and the question is whether this amount can be lowered because relatively a lot of money to open a trove. So I can't vouch for like exactly what the fleet people are required to do, but I can I understand the rationale of why this number was set to this amount, because like opening the trove is this kind of I would say like an operation for that requires investment, and you need to maintain that trove, right? So somebody needs to borrow that. So there is some logic behind setting this minimum, or at least there was. But on the other hand, we also remember that back in the day, creating a new asset on Beam cost $3,000 Beam.
Yeah.
And after the fork, we had to we lowered it significantly, which was very had a lot of positive effects because more tokens were easily created, and the contracts like DEX created new tokens. So creating a new pool was not an expensive operation. So maybe in this case as well, right? It should be lowered. I will personally look at the numbers, and if we all think that it's a good idea to reduce this number, we can petition to the fleet people, and maybe they will update to a lower one. So yeah, valid question. We need to take a look at it. Another question that was asked, and it's regarding to we recently fixed this problem that we had in the accumulation, in the yield mining contract. We have decided initially to allocate the total of 6 million BMX for two pools, BMX and Beam X. And when we first deployed it, we screwed up and we put all of the 6 million of BMX that were allocated into a single pool. So now we fixed that, and now it's separated between 4 million in the Beam BMX pool, and the 2 million was moved to the Beam and Nifrit pool. And the question is, what should we do about Beam X Nifrit pool? Should we reward it, or what's the correct way of handling that? Because from what I remember, maybe I'm wrong, I need to check it, but we didn't discuss it. But in any case, we need to talk about that, because there is this pool, and currently doesn't have any reward for being an liquidity provider there. And also, in continuation to the same question, maybe it's also a good idea to reward pools that use the breached coins, right? Like breached Ethereum and breached USDT.
True. This is cool because this would also encourage people to bridge in the first place.
Yeah. So valid question. So I think what we should do, we should just open a thread about it, talk about it again, recall all of the things that were said previously about our options, and if an additional allocation of BMX is needed, maybe vote on it. So I will follow up on that, but if I don't, please don't hesitate to remind me as often as possible, because as we all know, I have some maybe good qualities, but being consistent and remembering things is not one of them.
I think you're selling yourself short. You're very good at remembering.
No,
That's good. And I'm on.
My wife knows that. She knows when she reminds me something, it should be in this moment in time where I don't have the chance to context switch. Because if she reminds me too early, then I will forget in 2 minutes because I will do something else. Yeah. So
I have that as well. I asked the other half to remind me something, and then she reminds me 5 minutes later with
the next one.
that's no good to me.
No. Because if somebody makes your list, there is the second part of actually looking at the list, right?
Yeah, sure.
There is always this weak link.
I need a list of the lists that I have and when to look at them.
Like, didn't you have the meeting in the calendar? Yes, but it also means I need to look at the calendar. Yeah. Okay. So it's been great. And we'll see you in autumn next week.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure as always, and looking forward to next week's and what's going on from there.
Yep. Stay safe, be well, and we'll see you next week.
See you, Alex. Thank you, guys, and thank you all for joining.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you, mate.